Good morning, Pastor Ron Jetter, Immanuel Lutheran Church, Grandview, Washington. It is Tuesday, the 8th day of September. Wow. A little chillier today. I have long sleeves on. First time I've worn long sleeves in months. Wow, except for when I was up camp. Oh, that's right. We haven't been up camping this year. Our trailer has not been used, and I probably should check on it because it was windy yesterday. Part of our magnolia tree out front of our house broke. I've got to fix those branches. We lost the roof off our patio, and the backyard looks like a debris field, so it has to be raked before it can be mowed. How did you fare? Boy, that was something, wasn't it? The air was unbreathable, even to go out in it for a few minutes and try to secure things. The eyes stung and the nose, even with a mask on. It was not a fit day out for man nor beast, that's for sure. Well, as I mentioned yesterday, chapter 36 of Genesis is one of those that we have to ask ourselves, why is this here? It's about Esau, the twin brother of Jacob. Esau did not receive the blessing or the birthright from his father Isaac. It went to Jacob. Jacob became Israel, and now the story of Israel will continue, and in fact continues to this day, 3,800 years later. The story of Esau is in there for one purpose, to talk about all of the many clans and peoples that inhabited the land of Canaan, the land that we would call Israel today. Descendants of Esau that we would call the Arab nations. Also Uncle Ishmael or great uncle Ishmael's people. All of these, everybody except the descendants, the direct descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it will be Jacob's children who inhabit the land, but even they will be winnowed down as history gradually then takes some of them. So Abraham's two sons, only one of them becomes an inhabitant of the promise of God. Isaac's two sons, only one of them becomes an inhabitant, or the owner of that promise. Jacob's 12 sons, basically only two of them later on in history will end up inheriting that ongoing promise. And those two and a remnant of one of the third still exist to this day. That being the Jews who incorporated the tribe of Benjamin, Jews coming from Judah, the tribe of Judah, and then the Levites. And that's a story for the book of Exodus. Whatever happened to Levi? Why, Levi wasn't one of those who got land. Levi had instead a special calling. But now back to the really fun story. As I say, what I really wanted to do with Genesis is look at the great enduring stories of it. And chapter 36 is just a footnote. Chapter 37, we get back to the plot. And boy, does this advance the plot in a huge way, because this now sets up the greatest story of the entire Jewish historical narrative. Chapter 37, verse 1, Jacob settled in the land where his father lived as an alien, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. Remember that he was the youngest of the 11 brothers. This is before his brother Benjamin was born. He was a helper to the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. That is to say, those who are the maids or servants of Rachel, Joseph's mom, and Leah, who was his aunt, of whom the rest of the bulk of the children, the bulk of the sons, were born. Joseph brought a bad report to them, of them, to their father. Now Israel, remember Jacob is Israel, Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his children because he was the son of his old age and the first son from Rachel, the only one of the wives he truly loved. He had made him a long robe with sleeves, But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to them. How parents set up these things by favoring one child over another. Now, in this, it says Joseph was given a robe with sleeves. It doesn't say Joseph was given a coat of many colors yet. Where did we get that notion? Where did we get the Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dream Coat that wonderful British playwright gave to us? Stay tuned, right? Verse 5, once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. Well, yeah, when you hear the dream, you'll see why. You would too. He said to them, listen to this dream I dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. His brothers said to him, are you indeed to reign over us? Are you to have dominion over us? So they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. And even if his dream is a prophecy from God, shouldn't he have kept his mouth shut? But this little flaw of his is important to the story. This inability to keep his mouth shut, his inability to keep the dreams to himself. At 17, he should know how it's going to be received by his older brothers. He had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, look, I had another dream. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. Those other 11 stars, were they the other brothers plus the one sister, or had Benjamin then been counted among the 11 brothers? When he told his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what kind of dream is this that you have had? Shall we indeed come, I, your mother, and your brothers, and bow to the ground before you? So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Well, his father's the one who created the mess, and his father's saying, Joseph, you should know better than that. Well, gee, Dad, you're the one who told me I'm better than all of them. You're the one who gave me this really cool robe. It's got sleeves. I mean, really, in Israel, a sleeve? This is awesome. Wow, what was his dad thinking? Yeah, and how do we do that as parents? We only had 2 children. There may have been times when we thought, when one thought they were favored over the other. And there may have been times when we appreciated the behavior of one more than the behavior of the other. But as parents, we tried to treat them by their behavior and love them because they were worthy of being loved. Sometimes I love you took the form of no, you can't do that, or you're in time out, or you have to earn it. In fact, sometimes that's the best way to say I love you, rather than saying, oh sure, you can have anything you want. That's not I love you. It really isn't. That's just spoiling kids. That's being a lazy parent. That's my opinion, for what it's worth. Verse 12. Now his brothers went to the pasture to pasture their flocks near Shechem. Remember Shechem, where they had destroyed the Hivites because of the rape of Dinah? Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. He answered, here I am. So he said to him, go now and see if it is well with your brothers in the flock, and bring word back to me. So he sent him from the valley of Hebron. Oh, and here's Joseph again saying, I want you to be the one to spy on your brothers and then come and tattle to me if they're behaving or not. Again, setting it up. Joseph came to Shechem. A man found him wandering in the fields. The man asked him, what are you seeking? I am seeking my brothers, he said. Please tell me where they are pasturing the flock. The man said, they've gone away, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from a distance, and before he came near them, they conspired to kill him. They said to one another, here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we shall say that a wild animal has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams. But when Reuben, who heard it, he delivered him out of their hands, saying, let us not take his life. Remember Reuben, one of the oldest? Reuben said to them, shed no blood, throw him into the pit here in the wilderness, but lay no hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand and restore him to his father, he being God. If it is God's will, let God's will be done, and let Joseph's life be spared. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the long robe with sleeves that he wore. They took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty. There was no water into it. Then they sat down to eat. Looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels carrying gum, balm, and resin on their way to carry down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, what profit if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Judah said, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Remember the Ishmaelites, the descendants of Abraham's first son, Ishmael, their great uncle, or their great-great uncle in this case. His brothers agreed. When some of the Midianite traders passed by, they drew up Joseph, lifting him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. That's strange. The brothers were going to sell him to the Ishmaelites, but then they let Midianites come do it. Traders came, and maybe they told the Midianites, hey, there's a guy in that pit, and we were thinking of selling him to the Ishmaelites, but do what you want. So something else seemed to have transpired, so they didn't actually have to do the deal then. Reuben returned to the pit and saw Joseph was not in the pit. He tore his clothes. He returned to his brothers and said, the boy is gone, and where can I turn? They took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, dipped it in the blood. They had the long robe with sleeves taken to their father, and they said, this is what we found. Now see whether or not it is your son's robe. He recognized it and said, my son's robe. A wild animal devoured him. Joseph, without doubt, torn to pieces. Jacob tore his garments, put sackcloth on his loins, and mourned for his son for many days. His sons and his daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, no, I shall go down to Sheol to my son, mourning. His father bewailed him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. And that's where we leave Joseph, as a slave sold in Egypt. The brothers, guilty or not guilty, they left him in a pit, left the Ishmaelites to get him, but somehow the Midianites came along. There seems to be some conflicting details. The details aren't important. The one detail that is important is Joseph is now in Egypt where God wants him. We'll find out why tomorrow.